Hey, here we're back again with the Portafilter Redux show, and where we listen back to the old podcast that I used to do with a buddy of mine, Nick Cho, who you may know today as Your Korean Dad. We used to do a podcast called the Portafilter.net podcast, where we would talk about different issues in the coffee industry. And I thought that 15 years later, let's go back and revisit some of the episodes and see what the difference is in today's coffee world versus back then. What was really important to us in 2005 and what wasn't so important today. So let's go back and have a look. Today's show is from actually Portafilter episode number 3, the extended dance mix version. This one runs just over an hour, about hour and 8 minutes. And it features some really great luminaries from back then, the 2005 US Barista Champion Phuong Tran, as well as Sammy Piccolo, the 2-time Canadian Barista Champion. They're all part of it, and we're also going to get into a conversation about consistency and consistency in roasting and blending. And, let's get into it and see what happened back in the day. Meanwhile, I'm going to have a little bit of my lunch today.
You have done that yourself.
It's a little cheese tray that I lifted from a Christmas party this past weekend, and some Pope's noses.
Your anger and your lust for power have already done that.
So back then, obviously, we were really into Star Wars. I'm going to try this Duman San Luke from Greenland Leomet.
I see through the lies of the Jedi. I do not fear the dark side as you do.
What are you talking about?
I fear dark roast.
Of course. And security for my new empire.
Your new empire?
Don't make me kill you. Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.
If you're not with me,
Only Sith speak in absolutes.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
You will try.
And
Nice.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. This is Portafilter.net podcast number 3. Number 2, if you don't count last week's little special thing. I apologize for that. I got a lot of crap from folks who were like, dude, it's your second freaking podcast.
Crap for what?
Well, I mean, basically, like, last week was, I titled it the special edition. I mean, it wasn't you and me sitting in front of a desk.
Right.
And,
It was that Peter G guy.
it was Peter G down at Counterculture.
Peter G, what's up? Oh, oh.
I mean, it was all good. And I hope that folks enjoyed.
Wait, they give you crap for what?
Well, just that, it's like the second podcast, and I'm like, special edition.
Ooh,
Oh,
fruity.
very special.
And they're already upset about that?
Oh, not upset, just giving me a little
I
bit of
thought
crap.
they were upset.
There's a big difference.
Protesting. I was wondering if people are going to be protesting outside.
No. Anyway,
Bit of the dry
again,
finish.
welcome everyone. Podcast number 3. Let's call it number 3.
Number 3.
Today is Monday,
Number 3.
June 13th, and we're here in beautiful Timonium, Maryland today.
Oh, yes, Timonium.
Timonium, Maryland. What, you got something for that?
Yeah. We got a little bit of sound bites here, but
We're here at J Shave Ice and Hawaiian Coffee here in Timonium, Maryland, a suburb of beautiful, toothless Baltimore, Maryland.
I should stop here and let you know that before I had a company called Spro, we actually had a business called J Shave Ice where we were focused on making authentic Hawaiian-style shaved ice from Hawaii. I used to live there. I lived there for 8 years, and so that whole experience was a big part of me. And I when I decided to do my own business, I thought, what can we do for a seasonal business that would be kind of fun? And so in 1999, we started doing this little business. It was supposed to be a summertime business. I was still working in motion picture production, and it did pretty well. And finally, we had 9/11, and then we had to move our location because we were in a seasonal location. And once 9/11 happened, we had to move. And by 2002, we had found a space that was year-round rent. And so how are we going to make money in the winter when, business is terrible for that? Like, there's no business for shave ice or snowballs in Baltimore in December. So let's do coffee. I knew coffee was getting popular, and that's how we got into coffee. And fast forward a couple more years, and that's when Spro came out. Actually, Spro started after this podcast started. So this is 2005 for the podcast. Spro started in 2006. So as we talk in this show about J. Weiss, that's where it comes from.
See, no one cares about Timonium.
All right.
Jay's sitting there banging his head.
You know that little song, that clip is from a group called P.I.C. in New York City. They actually wrote that song, Timonium, because they performed here in 1999.
Here at J. Weiss?
Yeah, here at J. Weiss, and they actually wrote a song about it. And they performed it on, I believe they performed it on Comedy Central's Premium Blend.
What, the Timonium song?
I believe so. I'd have to go back and look at the tape.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can get a tape of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and P.I.C. is still in existence today. But for that time period, they were the house band on Nickelodeon, the Comedy Central's Premium Blend with Wanda Sykes. So if you go back and look on YouTube or something, I'm sure you'll find their stuff. And they have great music, really based out of New York City. Hip hop, punk, funk, mambo, and ska all mixed together. Really unique sound. Go check them out. P.I.C.
Anyway, welcome everyone again. I hope that folks have enjoyed the first couple podcasts that we did, that we've done, I should say. So far, so good. We've had a whopping 400. We're coming on 400.
Really?
400 downloads for the first one, and approaching that for the second one. What do you guys have no time? I mean, nothing better to do than to.
Two crazy guys. Hey, but like they say with newspapers, right? There's a circulation. But there's always more people that read the newspaper than actually they sell the papers for.
That's true. I mean, I think I've heard, for instance, I've heard from some of my sources in Canada, in the Great White North, that people chose to listen to it in groups. Over in the Vancouver area. I think some people got together so they could sit around and not only listen to us, but sit back and
make fun of us.
Make fun of the Americans.
Yeah. Hey.
Very apropos.
But we love our Canadian friends to the north of the border, and yeah,
they're awesome. Oh, really? So the people are listening in groups?
Well, some people are.
Oh,
I mean, for instance, I should mention that
that's pretty cool.
Trish Shea,
my favorite
from California, had told me that she had listened to it with her husband.
Oh, he's probably real pissed off now.
He was pissed at what you had to say. No, actually,
she's my true love in the coffee business.
And apparently the true love of many folks out of the coffee business. But nonetheless...
did other people confess to you?
I've heard some feedback from others, especially the roasters.
See, all these guys, they're such... Everybody wants to be a joiner now.
Those roasters with their jumpsuits and, yeah, out there with their... with their cooling bins and what's that little air gun thing that that
air gun?
It's like that dust off thing, but like in a big, it's like an air compressor thing that they use.
Well, that's the roasters. Roasters always have some sort of crazy.
I mean, but they're roasters, so it's like they can't just flick the bean with their finger. They have to overpower it with this tsunami of air.
Oh, yeah.
Such as roasters. Anyway, speaking of Canada. Getting into our little news bag, our news bites, things that are hot topics out there right now. The Canadian Barista Championships are this week.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, today and tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday, and wish everyone luck up there at the big Canadian.
Yes, that's right.
In Toronto, I think.
In Toronto, right? I think it's at the CN Center. I believe.
Is it?
Well, we can look it up.
I think it's in a hotel. I read a press release or something.
In a hotel.
Anyway, it's pretty cool. I mean, the Canadians, this month in June, they'll it's interesting. I'd like to hear from some of the Canadian folks if there was any particular mentality or thought behind having the Canadian Nationals like 10 months before the World's preparation time. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I mean, we have our USBC either like a month before or a couple months before the Worlds, but yeah, they have theirs like 10 months before it. But all the better.
I guess that's why it gives them time to get ready.
maybe.
That's why I guess Sammy does so well at the Worlds.
Well, it's interesting, speaking of news and development, Sammy Piccolo from Cafe Artisan.
Just want to take a moment there because, we're talking, they're mentioning, I guess not they, we are talking about the how Sammy Piccolo may have an advantage because he's able to compete and win 10 months ahead of the World Championship. And that's pretty much still the situation today. A lot of championships will happen months before the World. So, like, for example, I was just in Saudi Arabia doing the Barista Championship in December, earlier this month, and the championships are scheduled for Athens in June. So the champions that have already won have at least 6 months worth of preparation to go for. The Canadian, the Mexican champion is named in September. They have a good 10 months. The United States champions is sometimes at a disadvantage because, like, if they're having it at the European show, which is in June, the U.S. champion is not named until April, and then they only have 2 months to prepare. However, this past year, when the championships were in Melbourne, they were, wait a minute, when were they held? Oh, never mind, scratch that. They were back in March, no, they were in August, I think. And but like, let's say for next year, if the U.S. champion's named in April, next year it's going to be in Taiwan, and that won't happen until November of 2024. Yeah, so it depends on where it's being held every year to how much time champions will have to prepare. But since typically it happens in April or May, April if it's held in the United States, April or June, April if it's held in the United States, or June if it's held in Europe, then they don't have as much time.
I know. Last year's number 2 in the world. This past year's number 3, and he had the original thing that was out there as far as what I'd heard was that he was going to take a step away from competition, but he's back. And
he's back.
He competed today in the first round.
He couldn't resist, could he?
Well,
nice.
But so we'll look forward to hearing the results back from the Canadians, and we're going to talk to someone who's out in Toronto a little bit later, a special guest on the Portafilter.net telephones. But
exciting.
What else is going on?
Oh, it's at the Holiday Inn, King Toronto, Canada.
Very nice. I'm sure it's a lovely Holiday Inn.
Have you been to Toronto?
I have, when I was a child.
It's a nice. It's clean. I was there a year ago.
Yeah.
Beautiful city. Great food.
Yes.
Terrible coffee, but great food.
Oh, well.
It's true. Let's not lie about that. Everyone knows that listens to this.
They're working on it. I'm sure there are folks right now, this very moment.
I should say that since 2005, there has been a number of shops that have opened. Some have gone to the wayside. But the happy to report that the coffee scene in Toronto is much better than it used to be 15 years ago.
We're trying right now. And anyway, Cafe Artigiano, speaking of Sammy Piccolo and his brother Vince, they're a great, groundbreaking cafe business or coffee business, I should say, in the Northwest. They're getting ready to fire up the roasters.
Really?
Yeah, they they've got how many cafes? Like 6 now or something?
No,
like
do they? Is it 6?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, they do have quite a bit. They do have quite a bit.
Jay's gonna probably
pump that up.
Go look it up online right now. But have a pair of very nice roasters.
What'd they get?
I don't know if I want to scoop my friend Mark Prince up there. Mark's got his podcast brewing, and I heard a sneak peek. And
oh, did you really?
Yeah, he's got a little conversation with Mr. Vince Piccolo.
Oh,
Cafe Artigiano.
Excellent.
Going to talk about their roasting and stuff. And so I'll let Mark. I'll give.
Very good.
He told me that us getting our podcast up has helped kind of inspire not only him but some of his folks. Five cafes.
Yes, 5. You're right.
5 cafes.
5 cafes.
But anyway, so we'll look forward to hearing about that, Mark, on your podcast. We're going to have dueling banjo.
Now, I don't know if Mark Prince is still running the Coffee Geek podcast. I don't know if that's still active or not. But he did start it not too long after we started the Portafilter.net podcast. But what Nick's referring to is Cafe Artigiano, which at the time was the biggest cafe operator for specialty third-wave coffee in Canada, at least in Vancouver. But, man, they used to do tremendous business. Like, we went to visit one of the locations, and the way that they would process the line I mean, massive lines, was just stunning for us, especially at that time. So the owner was Vince Piccolo, like you mentioned, Sammy's older brother. And Sammy worked there as a barista and became, Barista Champion. Now Sammy owns a place in, I think it's on Commercial Drive in Vancouver called Prado Cafe. Really nice place. Really, I think he's really there focused on, like, doing his own thing, making nice quality coffee. So well worth checking out if you happen to be in Vancouver. But what Nick's talking about is back then, Cafe Artigiano used to buy their coffee from Intelligentsia in Chicago. And Intelligentsia was sending a lot of coffee to them. They were going through a lot of coffee, big account. And the big concern within Intelligentsia that year was Artigiano going off and doing their own roasting. Now, at the end of the day, Artigiano did not technically start doing their own roasting. They did switch their suppliers from Intelligentsia to Vince's new company, a company that still runs today called 49th Parallel. So that started right around this era, late 2005 or mid 2005. And yeah, there it is. And that's what's happened. That's where it is today. So Artigiano was sold off to another company or to another group of people. And so Artigiano and 49 Parallel are not under the same ownership anymore. They actually, that happened not too long after the founding of 49 Parallel. And now 49th runs separately than Artigiano. And there's Cafe Prado. And, of course, Intelligentsia is still operating in different parts of the United States.
Doing podcasts.
Oh, that'd be nice. I think I wonder if Artigiano was going to go all the way out and change and go with the air roasters.
That's not, no.
No. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Stir the pot up a little bit of the roasting community.
What I do know is that these are a nice new, what do you call it?
I want to note that the comment about the air roasters, this is 2005. I don't recall clearly whether or not the Lohrings were emergent at this point. They were going to be emergent immediately after this if they weren't already emergent. And yeah, so the Lohrings are technically air roasters that force it through a drum that has paddles that spin. It's not a rotating drum that's a direct flame like gas-fired roasters. So it's a little bit different. But yeah, so I'm not sure where that was.
New design, good stuff.
Right, gotcha.
Very
nice.
good stuff.
Nice.
So we'll see. We'll look forward to seeing that. And anyway, more Canada news.
More Canada.
Your boys, Hines Public Market Coffee.
Yes, I heard that Hines, they're going to be, I've heard from Mr. John Sanders that they're moving their roasting facility up.
Colonel Sanders?
From the Colonel. He says they're moving up to Canada for their roasting. And we'll be shipping out from Canada or something like that. I don't really understand how it all works.
Well, we talked about it a little bit last week with Bronwyn. But for those who don't know, they're tearing down that whole building. Hines has basically ruined that little plot of land, and they're tearing down the building that Hines Public Market Coffee is in. East Lake Boulevard, right?
East Lake, yes. East Lake Avenue East.
Or Avenue.
Avenue.
And so as they do that, they're going to set up a cart right across the street from a Starbucks.
No, something like that.
Yeah.
Like
I talked to Bronwyn this week, and she's confirmed.
She said it's still rolling?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay, good. Very good.
And so the 5 group will be up there.
Yeah, on wheels.
Yeah.
5 on wheels. Yeah. Nice.
And so and Mr. John Sanders is going to take the roasting stuff up to Canada and set up shop.
So I should interrupt here for a moment. What did happen, so Hines was kind of like my spirit animal of coffee, where I learned a lot about making coffee and about roasting as well. And so in 2005, the owner of the building finally decided to sell the building, and they were going to tear it down and do this new renovation or new development of that parcel of land. And the plan was to try to go back to that space after they built it up and do some things in the interim. At the end of the day, all said and done, there was they put a big condominium building there, about 5 stories. Another company took over did coffee on the ground level. Hines eventually went up to Vancouver and became part of Origin's Organic Coffee on Granville Island. And that was essentially the end of Hines as it existed in this era. Whether the two principals, John Sanders and John Hornall, they're both still involved in the industry in different facets, all across the country. Bronwyn's still around. Celeste is still involved. And so it's I still hear from everybody, so it's real nice. But that's kind of where that path took everyone from this point.
Up there. So best of luck there, and our thoughts are with John's.
Yes,
as I'm sure there's going to be a lot of sweat and a lot of movement. And
how do you move a roaster like that? On a tractor trailer?
Well, when you have Jedi powers like John,
I think Bronwyn's going to just schlep it on her shoulders.
Yeah, really.
Nice.
She's going to just roll it down the street and kick it down the street like a can, like a tin can. New issue of Barista Magazine hits newsstands this week.
Yeah, people keep talking about that online.
Barista Magazine, I think we talked about the whole conversation at the first podcast about journalistic credibility and stuff like that. I think that for those who have had the privilege of leafing through and reading the Barista magazines that Sarah Allen and the folks up there have been working so hard on, that it's really been kind of the answer to a lot of people's prayers.
Prayers.
We don't want to get
coffee prayers.
We don't want to get all religious here, but yeah, they're coffee prayers, and just awesome stuff. And we haven't here on the East Coast. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen the new issue yet.
I ran to the post office before we started just to see if it was there. I was like, oh, is it? No, it's not there.
And Jay doesn't run for just anything.
That's very strange to see me running.
That's still true.
Sweating going on with that too.
Yeah. This weekend, the Southeast Regional Barista Guild Jam at General Espresso Astoria.
That's right.
In Greensboro. You going down?
Yes, I'll be there Friday, June 17th. Because they're going to have the party,
Partay.
The partay and the soiree. So I'm going to enjoy some caviar with our friends down at Stockton Graham. And I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave Saturday morning. And
you're leaving Saturday morning?
Yeah, forget the jam thing. Why am I going to do
just the party?
Do that for? I've had enough already.
But
Bronwyn
mentioned last podcast, or the first one I should say, that she's going to be there, and I know some folks from my shop, Murky Coffee, going to be going down, and maybe we'll see Homeless.
How many people are you sending down there? Oh, you think Homeless is coming?
I think he'll be there.
Oh, that's good. I look forward to seeing all these people that we've talked about online.
I'm glad you look forward to that, Jay. I'm
going to be staying at the Hampton Inn Suites.
Is that where you're staying?
That's where I'm going to stay.
Very nice.
Actually, that's where I'm going to tell everyone to stay, because they might bother me where I'm going to stay, really. Last time I told people where I was going to stay, I had all these groupies outside.
Sure.
Terrible.
Throwing their panties and underwear.
Yeah, all these Japanese schoolgirls. I was like, what's going on here? So, how many people are you guys sending now?
4.
4?
Well, actually, I wasn't going to go down. My wife is actually due. Our second baby girl is due July 6th.
Oh, right on.
And so we're kind of in the last month, and didn't really want to do any traveling and leave the homestead. But we changed the plans, and Susie's coming with.
Oh, is she really?
Yeah, I mean, we have some other stuff to do down in North Carolina while we're down there, but we're going to hang out. And
you going to buy furniture?
It's a furniture trip.
Oh.
It's a furniture trip.
Of course.
For those from the rest of the other parts of the continent, I don't want to say country. We want to be
the continent.
The continent. North Carolina is kind of a big center for a lot of furniture makers. So a lot of the places like Pottery Barn and Crate and Barrel and all those places get their furniture from manufacturers in North Carolina. So
do they really?
Yeah. So that's why a lot of folks like to go down to North Carolina and cut out the middleman and go down factory direct pricing and all that. And so we'll check that stuff out.
Oh, I just go to IKEA.
They don't have IKEA in North Carolina.
They probably banned them.
They come up from North Carolina to Virginia to go to IKEA. It's messed up stuff. Where's this desk from? My table in my shop that we did the podcast from was from IKEA. What's this?
This is Office Depot.
Office Depot.
It's right down the street. Very convenient.
Do they have a jingle? Anyway.
No, I don't.
Let's see. And tomorrow is Katie Cargiula's birthday.
Woo, Katie.
Katie is here. She drove up from Murky, Arlington with me, and just to hang out and check out Jay's Shave Ice and have a shave ice. Katie, how was your shave ice? It was delicious.
All right, thank you.
That's and she turns 22 tomorrow.
22.
And big party Saturday at Katie's place in Northwest D.C. Anyone who wants to come out, come on out and free booze and what's that? DDR on the projector, she says, and
DDR, really? Dance Revolution. Are you a champion?
What?
Are you a champion DDR person?
No.
Katie, it's funny. Katie likes to throw parties and blend up mixed, blended beverages with the Blendtec blender that she won as the runner-up, #2 for the Southeast Regional Barista competition last year. So,
how is that Blendtec? Tell us.
It's great.
Is it?
Yeah. Here, look.
Maybe you need to. Speaking of
I
that.
feel like I'm doing a commercial.
Well, what do you like it better than the other ones?
Then what other ones?
Oh, I mean,
what I had before.
Do you guys use that? What do you use at the store?
We don't blend drinks.
Oh, you're hardcore coffee. Well, just to let people know, at our company we use blenders, so we're not that hardcore of a coffee place.
So happy birthday, Katie!
Happy birthday!
And yeah, so there's that.
Nice. Did you hear Paris Hilton's gonna stop? She's retiring in 2 years. Can you believe that?
Retiring from what? From a barista competition?
She's not going to be competing next year. And Paris decided that she's going to stay with her fiance Paris. That's the nice thing. If your fiance is the same name as you, like imagine if Susie was actually called Nick, it'd be hey
Watch
Nick,
it.
hey Nick, hey
My
Nick,
wife.
hey Nick. How much easier it would be. You'd never forget. You'd never get in trouble. Like, what's your name? Hey,
it gives self-love a whole new meaning.
Yes, very nice.
Anyway, okay, so that's a little news bites, and so have a couple things we wanted to talk about. First thing is the Barista's Code of Conduct, and we talked about that. Not talked about it, but there's an article on the front page of Coffee Geek, and I just wanted to talk about it real quick because I think Jay's pulling it up online or something like that. He's trying to. Folks have been talking about the whole position, the whole craft and the trade of the barista. Wanting to see it elevated to the point where not only are folks, do the general public acknowledge the skill and talent and everything and training and experience that goes into being a barista like Bronwyn or whoever, but the associated pay and benefits and kind of all that stuff. And so my whole thing is that that's fine. I think that's a good goal to have. I personally think that day will come, but not without some sacrifice and not without some sort of, I don't know, kicking things up a notch. Not just as far as coffee quality is concerned, but as far as the overall culture that's goes on within the community of the barista, and just for some of the folks who posted to Coffee Geek as far as comments and responses and feedback to the article, just to be clear, this is a professional to professional kind of thing. There has been some talk about maybe there should be a barista's code of conduct as far as how to deal with certain kinds of customers. One of the issues being people who are coffee enthusiasts who are very well versed in a lot of these things, and should they perhaps be acknowledged as such, when they go into a shop? I think that that was kind of in response to some folks having stories about going into shops and kind of feeling like the barista was a little snobby and elitist, and feeling like
well, some of them are.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a weird kind of thing. I'd like to talk more about it with some folks, and if anyone has any feedback, feel free to send us an email, podcast@portafilter.net.
Don't use that. That email is
it's
interesting. I don't think it works.
Nonetheless, Barista's Code of Conduct. I think I've also got some feedback, from folks who have take issue with. There were 4 main things there. I don't have it in front of me, but I know.
Yes, you've got. Yes, go ahead.
One was don't besmirch other coffee companies, and I think number 2 was the world is not your espresso bar. Respect other people's spaces.
Yeah, what was that all about?
What was that all about?
Yeah, what's that all about?
Well, I think the whole, I don't want to get into it too much. People can read the article, but there's that temptation anytime you go into a shop, as again to clarify, as a professional barista. You're out and about, you're not near your shop, or you're, sometimes it's just fun to go into other shops and check out what they do. There's always an opportunity to learn something. You go in and you see the portafilters on the counter, and it just things are kind of a mess, or not mess, but you just see clear mistakes that they're making. And the temptation is to try to point them out and be like, you really should, grind fresh per cup, or, your shot's just poured at 2.3 seconds for 2 ounces. Maybe you should adjust your grinder, or
you should wipe your steam wands.
It's not cool to pull, my Americano. Like, I like some water. I don't want 12 ounces of water pulled through my little 18-ounce puck of espresso ground.
Right. Well, here's a question. Like, I think that's a good thing. Is a good example is you have someone that comes in to your shop.
Right.
They're trying to tell you or your baristas how they want their drinks made.
Yes.
Or they're trying to correct them for their things. Or you have someone that comes in that actually decides that, hey, I'm a barista, or I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to cross behind your bar. How do you handle things like that? I mean, are you going to be like, do you kick them out, or what do you do? I mean, I think that has very pertinent. That's a pertinent rule.
It is.
Now here's something that what I'm saying there about that's actually examples that some people have had happen to them. In 20 years of operating, I have never had anyone walk behind the bar uninvited to do something, anything, and I've never had that. I don't know what it is. I mean, in our bar at the Hampton shop, you could easily walk behind it because it was open on 2 ends. So, yeah. I wonder what we're going to talk about next. One thing to note, I have not pre-listened to this for the recording of this show, and I probably haven't listened to this in a good 15 years.
And that's where, I think that we've kind of just sat back and waited for people to kind of just figure those things out on their own. For me, it was, just let's get them out there and let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. I know you love the whole thing. Like, I just put it out there for discussion's sake.
Oh, God. Discussion's sake. That stuff, really.
Watch it. Anyway, so...
really?
So, that's number 2. Number 3 was what?
No, that was 3.
That was 3?
Oh, no.
Number 3 was, like, you don't know as much about coffee as you think, Don't, be careful. I mean... there's that, and then the last one was, what's the last one there?
Customer.
Yes, it's about the customer. It's not about you, so I don't know. I'm still waiting to hear back, I think.
You really took a lot of heat over that one, didn't you?
What,
the whole prima donna thing?
Well, it's a little bit, and I'm still waiting to hear back. I have some scheduled conversations with some folks.
So what we're referring to is that while we have the podcast and we're talking about these things, a lot of the discussion that's happening within industry people is happening offline or online on internet forums. So places back then was the Barista Guild of America had a forum, Coffee Geek had a forum. There was a, well, I didn't really participate in the one that was on IRL. Not IRL, what was it called? There was another BBS type service that had it, but a lot of the conversations we're talking about was actually happening on those forums, and we're just kind of recapping them, continuing the discussion on the show.
Really?
Notably from Canada.
Really? About prima donna?
Who apparently want to talk about that particular issue and that particular item on the article.
They're upset that you said that?
Well, I think that they're just disagreeing.
That they should be prima donnas?
Well, I think that they would probably say that it's a perspective thing. One person's prima donna is another person's person with so much coffee passion that they won't put up with mediocrity. For those who have seen it, that movie, The Big Night. Have you seen that?
No.
It's I forgot who the guys are who are in it. It's a movie about 2 brothers who open an Italian restaurant. It's like a small film.
Okay.
But there's a classic scene where this is like a.
Full disclosure, I did not see The Big Night until probably sometime during the last year. Or 2. Yeah, I know, it's a shameful thing. It's shameful. I'm ashamed.
Like a really well-trained Northern Italian style Italian food.
Timpani.
Like, yes. And someone orders orzo, or they get something and they don't like it. They're like, "Can I just have spaghetti with meatballs?" And the chef comes out and just basically like kicks them out of the restaurant. Well,
when you talk to these people, what I'm interested to know is how do they...
Hi, Jimmy.
While they may talk about what they're offended about. How do they feel if they go to Starbucks and say, hey, can I get a regular? Or like a regular coffee or regular latte, and then the Starbucks person is like, oh, you mean a venti? Oh, you mean a venti? Oh, you mean a venti? Hey, whatever. Give me the one between the small and the bigger one. But you know what I'm saying? That I wonder how they would. How do they feel about that kind of event? Will they think that, oh, that guy's just being is he being a prima donna because he's doing that as well? Does he find that offensive? Because if it is, isn't that the same thing about, well, you should be drinking your espresso this way?
It's tough. I think that
That's a point.
I generally like to be a big picture guy. Try to take a step back and see both sides. I think part of it has to do with the fact that it's still a developing industry. And this goes back to my number 3 as far as like not ever feeling like you know so much about coffee kind of thing. We're all learning. We're all students. And I use the analogy a little bit of like reading the Bible, in the article. And Jay hasn't read the article yet, but you will, right?
I've been reading it.
You've been reading
bits and pieces.
The analogy that I used is that, I go to church and I'm a Christian and all that stuff. all that good stuff. Anyway, and so...
Hallelujah.
So one of the things that someone told me once that I thought was really good advice is that when you read the Bible, you don't read it like this is something that you're gonna conquer. You read it with respect, and so in other words, like don't read it from above, read it from below. And the coffee I think is the same thing. It's like don't look at the coffee as something you're gonna whip. You're gonna kick this freaking coffee's ass. And you're going to show people what
right, gotcha.
What hot shit you are. That's not what it's about,
or you're the best barista in your town, better than your bosses, better than everyone.
I mean, but I think that all relates to the state of the industry right now. So that's another, ongoing topic. Again, any opinions, feedback, feel free to give us a call, or not a call, but send us an email.
Email, yes.
What's the
I had coffee with Macaulay half an hour ago!
Last time we had Mr. Schwarzenegger. Today we have
Arnold. Oh no! Today we have
Richard Roma.
Mr. Richard Roma.
That was from Glengarry Glen Ross, right?
Is that Glengarry Glen Ross?
You don't know?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, Glengarry Glen Ross. I just watched it this past week.
Did you really? How was it? Good?
Good stuff.
Nice.
Good stuff. We're gonna make a quick phone call here.
We're calling people.
Yeah, we're calling people. We're calling up.
Will they talk to us?
I hope so. We're calling a cell phone. We're calling Toronto, Canada. Calling Toronto.
Toronto.
Calling Toronto.
Oh, nice.
We're calling Toronto. If you'd like to make a call. If you'd like to make a call, eh?
Hey.
She's gonna answer.
Uh-oh. We're in trouble
Toronto.
Uh-oh. She's working the booth.
Hey, Nick, just wait a second, okay?
Okay.
Nice.
We're gonna talk to Phuong Tran. We're waiting a second.
Tran.
She's working the Zoka booth right now at the big trade show up in Canada.
Oh, that's right, in King.
Oh, she's making a drink right now.
Kings Island.
Let's listen in as
Okay.
her
From here? Oh, okay.
I'm finished.
Paladino, she said.
Hi, this is Phuong.
How's it going? How are you?
Good. I'm doing really good, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Phuong Tran, 2005 United States Barista Champion. And and Phuong, you're in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto right now. I'm working the Zoka booth, and I've got Sammy around here. He's competing. He competed today.
Sammy Piccolo?
Sammy Piccolo.
Oh, maybe we'll talk.
He's actually right by the booth over here. He's on the phone, though.
Oh, cool. We'll see. Maybe we can talk to him in a little bit. So how's it been so far? You're how many months? Like 3 months into your reign as the queen of all espresso in the United States?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So how's it been? How's your reign been so far?
Well, so far, it's been really good. I've been busy, like the last 3 months, just kind of in recovery from all this stuff that I haven't been doing, catching up and stuff. So finally, I just got my hair cut.
Your haircut?
And, yes.
How short?
It's super short. It's a nice summer cut. It's super super cute.
Oh, cute. Nice.
So the signature Phuong Tran flip is gone?
Don't worry, it grows back.
Send us
Okay.
a camera picture.
But so you've been busy. You know, you're pulling double duty. You know, you've got Lava Java over there in Ridgefield, Washington, outside of Portland.
Ridgefield.
And now
Yeah.
and then you've got this other gig for Zoka. You know, I think a lot of folks know you. You know, kind of more for Lava Java so far, but this year has been a big year for you and Zoka. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, for Zoka this year so far, I went to Japan, trained a new team of baristas, and opened the second Zoka Japan store. So that was about 2 weeks ago. I just got back this last weekend. And so that's been really busy.
Nice. And so what is your title now with Zoka exactly? What do you do for?
I'm the lead trainer. We don't want to get into the technical title.
The technical title? 'Cause it's like,
of course not.
Empress of all baristas kind of thing.
The Barista Empress. Very nice.
Yeah.
But you're still based out of Portland then, or the Portland area?
Yeah, I still live in Vancouver, Washington. And then I do a little bit of commute up to Seattle. And half of my time is kind of divided up doing training for Zoka, and then the other time is for Lava Java. And it seems to be working fine. I'm having a lot of fun. I got to do a lot of traveling. So it's good. It's all good. And meeting new people and training us baristas all over. And so it's pretty cool.
Cool.
So how are the talent in
But
Japan?
I got all kinds of people here waiting to talk on the phone. There's Mark Foss. It's Sammy. Here.
Well, let me ask you a question first. You know, so at the WBC, the World Barista Championships, a couple months ago, you placed 7th. So what's in store for you for competition in the future?
I need to take a little break, I think. I'm going to take a little break. I want to have fun in Switzerland next year, just to be able to sit back and relax and watch and learn more than to be freaking out and competing.
Right, of course.
So I think that would be fun to do. And so, I don't know. You might be able to see me again, but next year, definitely not.
You're going to judge?
I need to focus. I want to focus on training and improving myself. You might see me judging. So that's what's in store for the next year, I think. I might consider judging. I like to do lots of teaching and seminars and helping out with a lot of stuff. And you'll probably see me more at shows and classes and stuff.
And so you're at a show right now in Toronto, right?
Yes, I am.
And so do you
the Canadian Championship is going on right now.
And is Sammy still there?
Sammy's right here.
Can we talk to him?
Yeah, I think so. Hold on.
No, now we're checking.
Yeah.
Hello, miss. How are you?
Sammy!
What's happening?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sammy Piccolo from Cafe Artigiano in Vancouver, Canada. How's it going?
Hey, good. What's going on? What are we on? What's happening?
We're doing the podcast.
Excellent.
So I gotta ask.
Sorry, go ahead.
I gotta ask you, from the get-go. So the word before, we were talking about this before. A word was that you were kind of, at least for the time being, you were going to step away from competition. But here you are back again at the Canadian Nationals. What's up, man?
I retire every year for 3 weeks, my friend.
the Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah, except I can't win a championship, but
Well, how's the competition this year?
It's good. It's really small, but we're trying to promote it over here in Toronto on the other side because it's always been in Vancouver.
Okay.
But we got the top 3 from the West Coast here, and it's I'm really good friends with the person who runs the show, Vita Radanovic, and it's nice to have at least show them out here how these competitions run. And
sure. So you went today for first round, right?
Yeah, I went today.
How did it go?
It was pretty good. I think I've done better, but there's actually 3 rounds. Even though it's small, it's still 3 rounds. So
3 rounds in 2 days?
Yeah.
How did they do?
There isn't 75 people in this competition. There's only 12.
Okay.
12. Wow.
Yeah.
So how does the competition, as far as the other baristas, stack up to your the past 2 years?
The top 3 or 4 are really good. Like, the difference between Canada and the United States is you guys, like, when it comes to, like, the top 15, for me personally, from watching from the audience, it's, like, so hard to pick. But here we have some baristas that are almost as good, or some are just as good, but we only have 3 or 4.
I see. And everybody else is pretty much novices?
Pardon me?
Everyone else is pretty much a novice?
Yeah, or they're just learning, you know. This is only our 3rd time having it. But we have some, like, for instance, I don't know if you've heard of Zach Lakic, or Zlatan Lakic. He's fantastic. And
I heard the name.
So, oh yeah, he's a very good barista.
Oh, nice. Is he from the East Coast or from where you guys are?
He works at a place called Cafe Artigiano.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I kind of have a soft spot for the guy. But
good stuff. You know, we were talking earlier.
I didn't mention that part, did I?
Disclosure, buddy.
Disclosure.
We're all about disclosure here. Gotta watch it.
Who else am I talking to?
This is Jay.
What's that?
Jay Carragay.
What's going on?
Oh, hey, what's up? You guys are in Washington, huh?
Yeah. The other Washington.
Oh, the other Washington, I know that.
You know, we were
I'm not that dumb.
Yeah, we got you. We were talking before about Artigiano, and you know, you guys got your roasting stuff coming up soon, huh?
Yeah, 49th Parallel Roasting.
Oh, nice.
We'll be ready distributing in August. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's really exciting.
I mean,
so I'm getting to expand my horizons a bit.
Are you getting involved with the roasting at all, or are you just sticking to barista training for now?
I'm in charge of the training at Cafe Artigiano mostly. Like, obviously Vince has his duties, I have my duties. But, you know, we have 95 staff, so I can't get out of there, you know, full on. But we have another brother, Mike, who's been a chef for 15 years at some of the best restaurants in Vancouver.
Another brother?
Yeah, there's a third one. He's a secret weapon.
Another Piccolo.
Man, there's a lot of Piccolos.
So, but he's actually got a fantastic palate. He's really into roasting. He's picked it up really well, and he's a workhorse. So,
who's going to be doing your green buying?
We have a few people. We're going to be going through our friend Innie Strader.
Cool. From Australia.
10 Castles.
Sure.
And I think, and a few other people, I'm sure. So.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of samples right now. We got about 20,000 pounds of green beans in our roaster right now, and we're getting ready to go.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't want to keep you too. Go ahead.
When's the competition? This weekend, right?
We have a jam coming up this weekend.
Oh, is it a jam? And then when's your competition?
We have competitions. I think the first one's going to be sometime in August.
Who's the favorite? Is it the defending champion?
Oh, you mean for the Southeast?
Yeah.
Oh, Southeast.
September, isn't it?
Ryan. Oh, that's going to be September. Yeah, Ryan, who from my shop, who won last year. He's going to try to judge this year.
Oh, is he going to be judging? Jay, are you competing?
Oh, I'm out of region for that one.
Oh, okay.
So,
man.
Yeah, I'm mid-Atlantic, technically.
But Sammy, we don't want to keep you too long because you know what'll happen is that if I talk to you too long, you know who gets jealous is Mark Prince.
Oh, does he? Oh, man. You know what? Oh, let him get jealous, my friend. Let him get I don't mind.
Anyway, Sammy, it's been a pleasure to just watch you at the WBC. You know, you did awesome there, and you got fans all over the North America. I mean, you know, just to be as far as this continent, just be our premier barista from this continent, and just kicking ass at the Worlds. And so best of luck up there in Toronto, and hope to see you in Bern, Switzerland next year for the WBC.
Bern.
I hope so too. Like I said, every time I go up there, I feel like I'm representing you guys as well. And these podcasts are awesome. You two are doing a great job of promoting coffee in this continent of ours, and keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Oh, if he's going to say that, then I have to add that Sammy Piccolo has a great ass.
Nice. I'm hugging you from here, guys.
Hey, watch it.
I'm reaching out.
Don't touch me there.
You want to talk to Phuong?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, now we're going back to Phuong.
Hey!
Oh, wow, nice.
Sammy stole the show.
Well, you know, we like talking to Sammy, but, you know, we like girls better than boys.
Yeah.
So,
actually, no, they're going back to get ready to receive the announcements for the semifinal round.
Cool. Well, we want you back in the States, below south of the border soon. So have a safe trip home.
Yeah, I can't wait to go back. I always love to be home.
And and at some point, we'd love to see you out here on the East Coast.
Yeah, come on.
I want to, yeah.
And show off your beautiful new hairdo. Any predictions from you as far as next year's USBC field of competition?
Next year USBC. Prediction. Gosh, it's going to be hard. I don't know. There's no more Asian women left that have been competing, right?
Oh, well, we got some people in California. I think
we've expended all the Asian women. There's no more.
It's hard. I don't know yet. I can't tell yet until we get into the regionals, I think.
Yeah. Well, maybe Jay will put on a skirt for next year.
Oh, it would be...
I could do that, but I think what Phuong's referring to is that in 2005 and then previously in 2004, there were Asian females that won the USBC. Of course, Phuong winning in 2005 and then Bronwyn Cerner winning the year before. And we heard from Bronwyn on the previous episode of the Portafilter Redux. And so let's continue on.
Just like my youth.
All right, Phuong.
Thank you guys for having me on your show. That's awesome.
Well, it's great talking to you. We love you. And take care.
Love you.
Again, have a safe trip back to America.
Vancouver, Washington.
I will. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Bye.
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 And there she goes, the lovely and talented Phuong Tran.
Oh, it's good to hear from her.
It's great to hear from her. Phuong, just such a professional. She, for those who were not able to be at the USBC, just did a kick-ass job as far as representing. And we talked to Sammy there for a little bit. That was kind of cool. Just kind of off the cuff there. We hadn't planned that. But yeah, Sammy from Vancouver, from Artigiano, just doing great things.
Artigiano.
So So for those of the folks who don't know about Cafe Artigiano, you'll be hearing more and more from them up there. And so yeah,
that's right. Nice.
A couple more topics, and then we're going to close out. Wi-Fi. Our friends over at Victrola. Victrola in
making some news, those Victrola guys.
They were in the New York Times today.
Yeah, you were saying something about that.
Yeah, there's a New York Times article. It's basically kind of been the same thing over and over again. I think it started out with it broke, as a lot of news items do these days. I think that they what do you call it on what is that website? Slashdot.org is a well-known kind of online news source. And the story kind of broke there, and has been in a bunch of papers. And I know it was in the Post-Intelligencer out in Seattle, and now the New York Times. And so it's big news. It seems to be really catching a lot of people's attention. I don't think that the folks at Victrola really thought that it'd be that big of a deal, but they're turning the Wi-Fi off on the weekends because it just was getting out of hand, where people were taking up every table with laptops and not sharing tables and not talking, and it just became this kind of library kind of atmosphere when they were really trying to create a lot more of a community kind of feel. And so turning it off,
Right.
And for whatever reason, this has become big news out there. That how, I don't know if it's so much how dare they, but the fact that they would, it's kind of a backlash of sorts, I guess, against the folks using the Wi-Fi. I know Wi-Fi in coffee shops has been kind of a new kind of phenomenon that's emerged in the past 3 or 4 years.
But do you see that? Do you think that the emergence of laptops and Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, is destroying coffee shops? Like your places are pretty packed with laptop people, right?
Laptop people. I mean, I'm not gonna. I won't lie. I mean, I think it's been a little bit of a sore spot for a lot of us. I think it's been a source of frustration. Wouldn't you say, Katie?
I would say sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a Saturday when it wasn't working, and there was a lot of complaints about the fact that it wasn't working. We were just trying to get it to work and do our job and serve customers, and it was, I don't know.
It can be frustrating.
It can be frustrating, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, on any given weekend or weekday, to have a shop with 30 laptops sometimes, everyone plugged into headphones, kind of listening to their own little iTunes mix or their iPods or whatever.
But the question I have with that is, promoting coffee culture, coffee house culture, isn't a lot of that also have to do with reading? And if you're reading, you're just kind of sitting there quietly reading. And
perhaps I think this is one of those things, though, where it's as far as the from a sociological perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that having the Wi-Fi in the cafes, it adds this new element. You know, kind of adding to the mix of people and doing different things. You know, we have people. You know, again, on any given day, you walk into one of my shops and you have someone who's knitting over here, and you have a couple who's having a fight over something over there, and you have someone who's reading a paper over here. You know, you have someone who, you know, a couple people at the bar having, you know, straight espressos or a macchiato or something.
Making national scandals in your shop. That's really
right. Actually, it's happened. It's happened. And then, you know, and then a couple people over here smattering people on laptops, you know, checking their email and doing stuff like that.
Right.
But, you know, what would it be like if you walked into a cafe and 3/4 of the tables were taken up by people knitting? Not doing anything else, just knitting.
Just be odd.
It'd be weird, and I think that you know, the Wi-Fi thing is kind of a similar sort of dynamic. You know, you have it's just I think it depends on the shop. I think some places it's manageable. Actually, at my Capitol Hill shop, it's been fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's granted it's a lot smaller. It's 1/6 the square footage, but you know, it's been manageable, and you know, it's never been much of an issue. But you know, in my other shop in Arlington, Virginia, you know. Like I said, sometimes just almost every table taken up with a laptop. So I don't know. I think that it's you know, big props out to the folks over at Victrola for kind of making news that way. You know, that way. I know that they're not the only shop who's done something like this, but for whatever reason they've attracted a lot of attention.
Really?
You know.
But they're not the first.
Well, I mean, for instance, there's a shop in D.C. called Trist. You know, that has been shutting off their Wi-Fi in the evenings during the weekends.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They've been.
Here's something that, you know, I wanted to talk about is like, you know, I never really agreed with these places that would shut off their Wi-Fi's because, you know, if you're going to offer it, then you offer it. If you don't, if you don't want to, if you want to shut it off at someone, just don't offer it anymore. And so when I opened the newer Spros and pretty much in all the history of Spro, we never had Wi-Fi. We just never offered it because it wasn't what I wanted to offer. Like, if you wanted to go to a cafe that had Wi-Fi, there were tons of cafes that had Wi-Fi. What we wanted you to do is hopefully to engage with others. You know, engage with yourself, engage with whoever you brought along with you, or engage with other people that are in the cafe. So we never had Wi-Fi. We never had music. We wanted to really create an environment where you could interact with others. But that's not to say that, you know, there's a ban on people bringing laptops or anything like that. And I think what we're talking about here or in the podcast with, you know, let's say knitting is a great example, or reading. You know, I think if you were to walk into a cafe that was filled with knitters, it would be like, well, this is kind of an odd thing. I still think today that this is kind of odd, right? But when you walk into a place that has laptop people, it's really irritating. I remember I was in San Francisco one year. I happened to be in San Francisco. I would get these layovers in San Francisco for like 24 hours. So I drove in the city one day and I was like, oh, I'm going to check out St. Frank Coffee. You know, very well-known, renowned coffee place. But they've got maybe, I don't know, 10 tables, 2 tops. Each of them had one person with a laptop. And it's like, you know what? This is just lame. Like, I just left. I didn't bother to get coffee because I was like, you know what? This is not what I want. Like, you know, they're feeding people free Wi-Fi and they're just kind of camping out. And like, my thought as an operator was that we weren't going to give you free Wi-Fi. But if you wanted to stay with your laptop, you could. If you wanted to sit there and read, you could. If you wanted to sit there and talk, you could do that. But the things that we felt strongly about, like, we want to encourage people to interact with each other. That doesn't happen when you're really sitting there on your Wi-Fi, on your laptop, with your headphones on. You know, so I don't know. I still feel very strongly today about cafes without Wi-Fi. Now, conversely, I will admit to the fact that if I'm traveling and I go to a coffee shop and they don't have Wi-Fi, I'm a little bit irritated. I'm like, oh man, I could totally use that. But in the world of travel, it is such now that, you know, having a data plan while you're traveling is not terribly expensive anymore. So it's the point isn't as difficult as it used to be. right, let's continue.
That for a while now, and so I mean we'll see. It's an emerging issue, and so far the word from Victrola has been that it's been a mixed bag. There are some folks that are pissed, and there are other folks that think it's great.
How pissed are these people?
Well, it's kind of like, they come. I think a lot of it. We could go on and on. Maybe we'll talk about it again on another podcast. But there's the whole dynamic as far as customer service and why you do what you do, and you have this coffee bar and you create this space. I think it was that book that we were talking about last time, Freakonomics.
Right.
There's a little paragraph in there where he talks about how the author talks about how for every person who's setting up like this thing, there are like a dozen people who are trying to figure out how to break the system. How to take advantage of it. And so we'll see. I think with everything there's a certain kind of acculturation that's necessary.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great idea.
What's that?
Shutting it off. They got lots of national publicity. They're now known all over the country.
Well,
I mean, I think that's a great. If I had known that shutting off Wi-Fi on weekends would get me in the New York Times, hell, I would have turned it off a long time ago.
I think the guys at Victrola would probably agree that I think they'd rather be known for their coffee than for their finger. How well their finger articulates the off switch.
Whatever gets them in the door, I'll be happy.
Yeah, so
I'll be happy.
I should note here that while I was talking just a few moments ago that how we don't like to offer Wi-Fi at Spro, at J. Shea Vice we did have Wi-Fi on offer. We were in a suburban location that was this kind of house on a main drag in suburbia. And one of the side benefits of having the free Wi-Fi, and we had a pretty strong base station, so it would not only encompass the entire interior, it would also encompass a wide swath of the exterior. And so a bunch of police officers got to know this, and so you would find police officers parked in the back parking lot of our shop, using the free Wi-Fi back then. Actually, it's how some people got caught, at the shop one day, and so that's that. So there is a potential upside to having Wi-Fi.
So we'll see, and we want to keep hearing from you guys over at Victrola as far as how that's going. So keep us in the loop. Should we do the last one?
The coffee?
Yeah.
Death of consistency?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, okay. So Portafilter.net. People have been blogging to it. We just added Trishea from TaylorMade Farms, Organic Coffee and Tea, just a week or two ago, and she posted something this week about just the inherent difficulties in blending for espresso as a roaster, and just about and that kind of is spurred on some conversations and some talk about what how that relates to kind of the third wave, which is quickly becoming an almost overused cliche, but let's for lack of better of another term, the third wave way of looking at coffee.
Overused already?
It's in danger of it.
It is?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm sick of hearing myself say third wave. I'll leave it at that. But anyway,
I wish the name third wave died a death at this point in history.
I wanted to, almost call this whole topic the death of consistency. Consistency being one of the tenets of this, maybe we can say second wave thinking. That coffee should be consistent and you should roast to achieve a consistent flavor profile throughout, each roast and throughout the year and maybe even throughout, many years.
Okay.
And one of the things that we're talking about now being maybe it's not about consistency. Maybe consistency, is bullshit. Maybe it really is more about, finding coffees and appreciating them purely for what they are, And I'll go out on a limb right now and say, one of the things that I've been talking to a lot of folks about is some of the chatter about Black Cat espresso from Intelligentsia.
Chatter about Black Cat.
I mean, the thing is that Intelligentsia, or Black Cat espresso, a great espresso. Okay.
Right.
On occasion, you will hear people or see people write stuff online basically kind of knocking Black Cat.
Right.
It's not as good as it used to be. for me and for some of the other folks I've talked to, that's bullshit. And it's not so much saying intelligentsia is so great. Jeff Watts and Doug and all those guys over there are so great that they could never, make a mistake. It's just that it's a frustrating thing for a lot of coffee people who are really doing great things to basically be criticized for variations in their espresso or in their any other coffee for that matter. That's what coffee is. That's the way it works. Components change. Even like a month later, like a certain green bean will have different characteristics than it did just 4 or 5 weeks before.
Right.
And so with all these different moving targets, to put something together, and then for someone to say, well, it's not as good as it used to be or whatever,
But I think it's not.
It's not what?
If you're, for example, okay, like you said, if the blends, if the actual beans are changing on a monthly basis because of their aging process, then isn't it the roaster's job? If let's say they've got a particular flavor profile for a particular coffee blend,
okay,
isn't it their job to maintain that consistent flavor? Because if you're going to tell your blend is blend X, well, if people try your blend X, they're like, man, that was smashing.
Well,
shouldn't they have? I mean, I think it's very reasonable for them to expect it's going to be consistent and taste the same.
Well, I think that's kind of my point is
right.
that I think that what intelligentsia and some other folks, they're not the only ones who are kind of been subjected to that sort of scrutiny, but definitely maybe like the most premier example of it. It just goes to show how hard it is, and I would say no. I understand if you want to get brand X, whatever espresso. If it's constantly changing, then what is it that you're buying? And I think that's a great question.
No, but I think even though it's changing, isn't it the roaster's job to compensate for those changes?
Well, that's in a way that's the whole issue. Is it the roaster's job to compensate for those changes and therefore, have kind of this mental picture of their espresso blend and how the extraction should taste and everything, or should we go the other way and say, it's not so much about trying to match a certain flavor profile, but it's really trying to blend, take these certain beans or kind of, put them together and come up with the best possible blend that you can on that given day, because that's all you can do. And so I think, Peter Giuliano posted a response in the comment section to the Trish's thread and said, if you have an espresso that's consistent, month after month, then it's really because they're kind of, cutting out the highs and the lows, and you kind of have this like muted middle section. And when you're talking about real consistency, like that's kind of almost the only way to achieve it. When you and Trish quoted me, she and I were talking, and I called espresso, espresso blending is the bikini contest of coffee, and I say that because it's like you can't hide. There's nothing you can hide. Every little piece. Every little area of cellulite and every little funny toenail and your bad boob job and everything in between. Everything is under scrutiny, and there's so many different factors. I don't know any swimsuit models personally, but I'm sure they'll tell you that just like a bodybuilder, for instance. You could use the same analogy for bodybuilding, professional bodybuilding. That depending on what they ate that day, their body is going to be a little bit different. And so, again, for coffee, especially for espresso, the sensitivities and all the different nuances and all the things at work, I think that it's not so much, I think it's just a good discussion to have. And something that I like, for folks to keep talking about is, how much is consistency really, any kind of goal? And if it's at all not a goal, then what is the goal? And what does that mean for espresso? What does that mean for coffee roasters, for green buyers? It's a whole different way of thinking.
Well, I don't know. I mean, let's say I think that's a good question, because as a shop owner, trying to provide quality beverages to the customer base, I want consistency. I want to know that it's going to taste the way that I've told them it's going to taste to the customer, and they're going to come in one day and they're going to be like, "Man, that was rocking." And I want them to be able to come back 2 months later and still think that it's rocking. And what you're saying about blending it, and let me say first that even my roaster was telling me before that, there's consistency. Sometimes consistency will change because of a variety of factors. So I'm very, I agree with that, and I am well aware of that. But going back to the consistency thing, we've got a product that's changing agriculturally year to year, month to month.
Day to day, sometimes.
And sometimes day to day. But if you look at other companies that are doing similar agricultural products, let's say, for example, Domaine Chandon.
What'd you call me?
Domaine Chandon.
You just call me a dumbass?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Domaine Chandon.
What the hell is that?
It's a champagne company.
Okay.
And
I just know Cristal.
Well, even Cristal. Louis wrote a Cristal. For example, Cristal, they have to blend from inferior grapes every year.
Right.
And they have to change that blend every year to match that flavor profile.
Do they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is different from wine then, where it's like you have a grape and you blend or whatever, and you come up with it is what it is.
Champagne's totally different than regular like red wines, where they're going to let each nuance every year come out. You go to a place like Domaine Chandon, and you're like, I want to have. They're going to create this flavor profile, like for Cristal or for Dom Pérignon. They want it to be the same.
Okay.
And they're going to blend every year to match that flavor, so that it's relatively consistent.
Right.
So I think it's the same thing. You have roasters that if they say they're going to make Black Cat, then I don't think it's beyond reason for the customer to expect Black Cat, quote unquote, each time they get it. And I don't see. And beyond that, if the people aren't happy with it, for whatever reason, maybe it's just not even to their taste, I don't see why you should get upset over that.
What do you mean?
Like, oh, wow, from what you were telling, from your set, I kind of get the feeling that intelligentsia people are getting upset that people don't like that
to be honest, it's not so much people, it's stuff that I've talked about with intelligentsia folks. It's just more, more with people outside of intelligentsia.
Because it's not everyone's going to like a coffee,
right?
So I think it's unrealistic to expect that people will.
Well, and I don't think that intelligentsia or anyone else necessarily would believe that, But I think that I don't know. I just think that the overall tone of discussion and the way that we look at coffee and what's how things change and develop over time. I think, and I'll make a prediction, and I don't think this is that much of a going out on a limb, but that's going to drastically change in the years to come, as people really kind of divorce themselves from the idea of consistency and start going purely toward, a lot more at least, toward kind of trying to really enhance what's there, or the beans that you have in front of you. Now, granted, you want to source good beans, but you use that to the best of your ability as a roaster.
Okay.
And it's not about trying to match anything. Appreciating it for what it is instead of trying to enjoy it for what you want it to be. Appreciating it for what it is. And
yeah, but isn't that why we get Tanzania Peaberry?
No,
why not? I mean, because that's the stuff that's going to change. That's the stuff you want, or like Ethiopian Harar, which according to Chris Tacey, has changed dramatically from the last several years.
Right, but you're talking about one farm or whatever, one lot.
Right.
There's so much variance between, you talk about Ethiopia Harar, you're talking about a certain region in Ethiopia.
Right.
You're talking about a certain segment of the coffee world, but there's a lot of variance even there.
Right.
And again, from year to year.
But it's not my job to worry about that. It's your roaster's job to worry about that.
Right, but that's going to. But if the roast, I think that any roaster that you talk to nowadays, in this day and age in the coffee industry, it's especially for those as the roasters themselves, and we as baristas are learning a lot year after year. And by no means are the roasters or green buyers like sitting back and just watching us learn. Like they're learning right along with everyone else.
Absolutely.
And as all that stuff is developing, I think that one of the things that's been a little bit of a source of frustration for a lot of the roasters is looking toward the retailers, the ones who actually sell the coffee to the consumers. Like, I think that you bring up a good point that a lot of retailers don't want variance. They want consistency. They want to know what product they're buying because, and if I'm going to play devil's advocate, I might say that's because they don't want to spend any more energy than they have to learning about coffee. They want to learn what Ethiopia Yirgacheffe is all about, and then turn around and be able to spew that same spiel day in, day out for the next 12 years.
Right.
They don't want to have to spend any more energy. And the thing is that, that's making a lot of compromises, I guess, Let's acknowledge that a lot of compromises are being made. I think maybe you and I are disagreeing about whether they should be made or not, but I think they are being made.
Well, no, I mean, I think that, I think it's a little bit different. I mean, for me at least, when it comes to the single origin beans, the changes crop to crop, month to month,
right,
I think are very welcome, very interesting.
Sure.
But if I have, Hairbender, man, I want that Hairbender to taste like Hairbender next month.
And that's and there are folks over at Stumptown that are kind of racking their brains and working hard to try to do just that.
Right. But I think that. But I mean, what I'm saying is that I think that that should be the bare minimum. I don't think there's anything wrong with expecting your espresso blend to be consistent month to month, day to day, week to week.
Well, and I guess that's where my thing is that that's true to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
But as we see coffee and everything continue to develop, I think there's definitely going to be a segment, call it third wave, call it whatever you want. Maybe it's an integral part of that or whatever. But that are going to kind of, again, divorce themselves from the consistency is any kind of goal issue and really go, for, again, pulling the best stuff out of the bean as possible. Be it blending or not. You take, like, for instance, it's kind of like,
Let me interject here for a moment. Like, it's blending or not, which means that if it's not, then it's single origin, right? There's just single origin, and then if you take two origins and put them together, there's a blend. I still think today that, it's really the onus is on the roaster. As a roaster and green buyer myself now, back then I wasn't. And I still think the onus is on us. If we create a blend that we're like, okay, this is the blend, we've got this coffee and it's going to have this characteristics. It's my job to find the coffees to recreate that on a regular basis. Now, it may not be exactly the same each batch, but it's got to have the same notes. It's got to be within a certain profile, right? And I think that's where we're getting off. And I think with at this time, these companies were having difficulty maintaining that. And because they were a little bit more extreme, like Black Cat, Intelligentsia's Black Cat, I was never really a fan of. And there's one podcast in the future where we're talking about it, and I think we went to an Intelligentsia shop, and I told him on the podcast, I said, this is the best espresso that I've had from Intelligentsia ever. And, I think in some respects, I also think that some of the banter that happens within the industry is especially back then, was really about protecting golden cows. Intelligentsia was one of those golden cows back then that everyone's like, oh, they can do no wrong, or they should not be doing any wrong. And I never bought that then, and I still don't buy that today. However, now that I have much more experience in the green buying and roasting side of the business, I still do think that it's on us, the roaster and green buyer, to create that blend in and out. Now, I think a lot of the industry, especially the specialty coffee side of things, everyone's really been excited and promoting single origins. Roasters have been pushing single origins. And I think a lot of that has to do because, you know what? They may not have the chops to do blends. Well, I'll say it right there. That's a bit of a harsh statement to come out and say that. But, blending is difficult. It's probably the most difficult part of the roasting side of the business. To create a blend and recreate it day after day, month after month, year after year. That's the most difficult thing. You really have to get in there and find the coffees. And like I said in the earlier part of this podcast back then is that, companies like Domaine Chandon, any of the wine houses that are blending their wines to a particular flavor profile, they're really paying attention to that. They're really working hard to do that. Bourbon whiskey companies, same thing. Beer companies, all the same thing. They want to have a consistent product. And, whether or not that other guy says that, you're cutting off the highs and the lows, yeah, maybe you are. Maybe you can have these extremes because, but I think also you don't have the extremes because the extremes are more for the minorities, right? You're trying to you're making a blend that typically will have more mass appeal. Anheuser-Busch makes Budweiser. That's a mass appeal beverage. People may not like it. People may hate it. People may have whatever feelings for it. But that beer is going to taste the same as it did 2 years ago. That's blending. That is the difficult part about it. If you get yourself a non-cuvée, let's say Dom Perignon, it's going to taste pretty much the same as the other non-cuvée years. I think a lot of people will rely too much upon the beauties of single origin coffees and use that as a crutch in lieu of actually learning how to roast and source and blend. That's my theory. Let's continue on.
If you have 3 different musical instruments, you have a violin, a cello, and a piano, and you put them together in a room, and you write a piece of music for them,
Mm-hmm.
The way you write the music for those particular instruments, you're going to write a certain kind of, piece.
Right.
Then as you learn more about the musicians, and you learn a lot more about the instruments, in theory at least, you might actually say, well, I would write this sort of piece for these 3, musicians.
Right.
But for this violinist, this different violinist, cellist, and pianist, maybe I would write a different piece because I know now much better how they play. I know about their little nuances, their quirks. And as you really, really, really get to know those particular people, it shapes and molds the way the piece that you're gonna compose for them.
Okay.
And so that's my thing with blending for espresso or for anything else, is that as you have these different components, you're not just it's like writing one piece for everybody, of music, and that's fine. And that's
I don't think it's. I disagree because you're saying, like, let's take your example. You said that you have 3 instruments and you're writing a piece for all of them to play.
Right.
Together. So you may know the particular violinist and what he can do, so you'll tailor that to him.
Right.
So you've got this piece now. You have 3 components to make this one musical piece. If it's performed over and over again,
right,
don't you want to hear it the same way?
That's the question.
Yeah.
And I think you're implying that the answer is yes.
Yeah, I definitely think that the consistency aspect. For example, if you played Mozart's Requiem Mass, right?
And I've sung that
with Confutatis, but then you played it like, you did it one day like that, and then the next day you did it like Aerosmith.
But that's different.
I think it's the same thing.
That's.
It has to be consistency to it for it to be appreciated.
Well, right.
Because most people that are involved in the industry are not necessarily selling to just our friends that may have that have an appreciation for it. You're selling it to the general public,
right?
And you want your average Joe to come in for his cup of Joe and be like, man, that was awesome. Tell his friend to come in. They come back together. You don't want him to come back, but it's better than last time. And then all of a sudden now you've got like so they can't hold a consistency. They're not doing the same thing each time. As a consumer, I can't be reasonably assured that I'm going to get what I want. And that's why Starbucks beats up on so many places, because Starbucks offers a very consistent caramel macchiato wherever you go. Well, people go to them not because they want better coffee. They're going to them because they're trying to reduce the risk that they're going to have something really bad.
Well, I think that they're going to Starbucks because there's no alternative that they know of that is better.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. They were trying to reduce the chance of them reduce their chance of getting something bad.
Right.
And going to an unknown usually means bad.
Right.
So I think that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we need to. I think with blends, consistency is the key because you want people to have that understanding.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep talking about it. I think it's a good topic. I think it's something that will continue to develop. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But
you know what I liked about Trish's article, though? With her line...
or the post?
She says something about going into people's shops and them asking, hey, what do you think about this? And her answering, I think you haven't tasted it recently.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, man. You're going to tell your friend, well, your friend's all like, oh, man, it's awesome, isn't it? Well, I guess you haven't tasted it recently because it really sucks at this point.
Well, I think that, again, it goes back to things are constantly changing.
Right.
And so even for some roasters believe that their roasts from today for their espresso blend, that they can talk about what they experienced today. 6 months from now, let's say that they haven't tasted an espresso since then from their roast, and think that all the same attributes are going to be present.
My God, but who would buy from a roaster like that?
I think that's 90% of roasters out there. I think so.
Well, let's hope that our listenership will be tasting their roast on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yes, taste your roast regularly.
Even as a retailer myself, there's definitely a level of it where I don't want to think too much about it. Because I've got so much going on. Otherwise, that's one thing. By having a roaster that I can count on that's making awesome coffee for me, that's one less thing I really need to worry about.
Right.
So I can sit back. I tell my roaster, hey, can you send me some espresso, send me some decaf, and then send me whatever rocks this week. And they send me whatever rocks.
Right.
And I don't have to worry.
And I think
that's what people need.
And I think that's fine, and I think there will always be a place for that. Just like with the whole thing, I think, in talking to some folks, especially Trish. There's Trish again. Yeah, Mark Prince and Trish over and over again in this podcast. That the third wave concept, it's not here to replace the second wave. It's just kind of adding a new layer of complexity and depth and culture and all the things that are associated with it.
We're not here to replace them?
No, we're not here to replace them. My children are here to replace me. But the third wave is not here. I mean, we talk about second wave. We're firmly entrenched in the second wave. Go to the supermarket. There's still freeze-dried coffee, which is a very first wave kind of thing.
Well,
granted,
that's never going to go away.
Right, that's what I mean. And so the second wave sort of thing is never going to go away either. Like if a company like Intelligentsia or Artigiana or whatever, let's just say, I know that they don't necessarily have aspirations for such, but let's just say that they get huge. That doesn't mean that Starbucks is going to just disappear. Like they're going to put Starbucks out of business. It's just another layer that's adding on to what we have out there now, and it's all good. Starbucks is good. Everything's good. This is the
awesome.
Portafilter podcast for Monday, the June 13th, and there we go.
Yeah, right.
We'll see you next time. Maybe we'll talk to some other people. Maybe we'll maybe we won't do a podcast ever again.
Maybe never again. now that we can't agree on consistency. Nick's all about, we're going to change our blend every week.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding about that. You know that.
Yeah, I know. So, but we'll keep talking about all these things, and as always, send us your emails, podcast@portafilter.net.
Portafilter.net.
And for my friend Jay and Katie here, and myself,
Katie Cargrillo.
See you next time, and mahalo.
Mahalo.
All right, that was the Portafilter.net podcast with myself and Nick Cho and our special guest Katie Cargrillo, as well as some phone calls with Phuong Tran, the 2005 United States Barista Champion, and the two-time Canadian Barista Champion Sammy Piccolo, and a little bit of information there about roasting and blending. I think that's a really interesting topic, as well as the whole Wi-Fi discussion. Like, the Wi-Fi thing really hasn't been resolved. You still go to cafes today filled with people in chairs taking up space. And the thing that really irritates me about Wi-Fi computer people is not that they take up the space, but that they take up all the space, right? So there was a time at Spro when we experimented with 4 tops. Right? We do 2 tops, right? 2 people per table. And then we did a 4-top. We did a couple 4-tops in the shop. And there it was. It's not like the campers from the lot tops went to the 2-tops. They went to the 4-tops and took up all 4 chairs. So now we had even less seating available to walk-ins than. So those 4-tops lasted maybe 2 weeks, and then we killed them because that was just ridiculous. But anyway, so what do you think about this show? What do you think about it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it interesting? Is it boring? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to know what you think. Would you prefer this as a live stream? I'm interested to know that too. Maybe we could do the live stream and have it at a particular time with the ability for you to interact live. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a lot more coming up. I'm recording this actually on December 19th. It's the week of Christmas. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you very much for your supporting this channel over the last couple years that we've been making videos. 2022 has been an exciting year. Really appreciate your support. We made the 1,000, we passed the 1,000 subscriber mark. That's fantastic. We passed the 4,000 hours of watch time. That was fantastic and really appreciate that. Super excited. We're going to bring you more videos coming up on the channel, some tutorials as well as some product reviews and then more travel videos. Like I've got a lot of how-to stuff and with different baristas from around the world essentially. We've got videos that we shot in Hawaii, LA, the Saudi Arabia, down in Brazil. So, you know, as I've been traveling with coffee and exploring more coffee, we've been doing that. Also, we've got an origin trip coming up in March of 2023. Got some details coming up of that in the next week or so. So stay tuned here on the channel, and we'll let you know what that's going to be like. Basically, we're going to bring you down to Nicaragua, to one of our farmers there, one of our great friends and families that we work with for a long time. And we're going to show you how the farm works, how the coffee process, how coffee is grown from seed to cup. And yeah, it'll be a nice time. Just a couple days, in and out. Real easy kind of trip. All right, so again, thanks very much. Subscribe if you haven't. Let me know what you think down below. Is the show too long? Do you hate it? Do you like it? Let me know. All right. See you next time.